For the first 30 years of my life, I was focused on one thing: winning. I wanted to climb to the top of my career, my bank account, and in life in general. My rule was simple: depend on no one. I thought being completely self-reliant was my greatest strength. Community, that was just something you squeezed in for an hour on Friday, if it didn't get in the way of your plans. By my own standards, I'd made it. I had a big career, freedom, and the ability to solve any problem. But I was also totally, painfully alone. I'd built a fortress of independence, and I was the only one inside. Then I moved to the Philippines for work, and one simple truth broke that fortress apart. A full life isn't about what you can get, it's about who you share it with. That lesson didn't just change my goals, it changed my entire life. The old me lived by a spreadsheet, 5-year plans, quarterly goals, daily to-do lists, everything built around my personal success. My job was my identity. I worked in a competitive world where the lone wolf who closed the deal alone was the hero. The person in the next cubicle wasn't a teammate, they were competition. Even my friendships were like business deals. We'd meet to trade ideas, but it was always about what I could get. I wasn't a bad person, I was just following the rules I'd been taught. Look out for yourself, because no one else will. And asking for help? That was for the weak. From the outside, my life looked perfect. Great job, nice apartment, total freedom. But inside, I felt empty. It was like running a marathon where the finish line kept moving. My relationships were shallow. I had success, but not happiness. I thought independence would bring fulfillment, but it really built me a lonely prison I didn't even know I was in. So I moved to the Philippines. Not for some spiritual awakening, just for my career. It was a big opportunity, another step up the ladder. My plan was simple: stay 2 years, add international experience to my resume, then leave ahead of the competition. I landed in Manila with 3 suitcases and a head full of assumptions. I expected the traffic and the heat. What I didn't expect was how even small things in the culture would catch me off guard. In my first week at the office, I was given a huge project with a crazy deadline. My lone wolf instincts kicked in. I shut my door, put on headphones, and dove in. An hour later, there was a soft knock. A teammate stood there with a plate of pastries. "Sir, for you, welcome snack." I was confused. It was nice, but also an interruption. I thanked her, set the plate aside, and got back to work. Later, 2 more teammates came by. "Sir, we're having our merienda," they said, an afternoon snack break. "Please join us." I pointed to my screen and said no. Deadline. They looked at me like they were genuinely sad for me. One said, "But sir, it is better to work together." To me, working together meant a scheduled meeting, not a snack break. I saw their offer as a distraction, not an invitation to belong. I couldn't understand why they'd pause something urgent just to socialize. I thought they had a productivity problem. It took me a while to realize I was the one with the problem, and that moment was only the beginning. A series of quiet but powerful moments completely changed everything I thought I knew about life. About a month in, my coworker Miguel invited me to his daughter's first birthday party. In my world, a first birthday is small, close family, some cake, an hour tops. I showed up with a gift, planning to leave quickly. What I walked into wasn't a party, it was a festival. The whole street was blocked off, music blasting, at least 100 people there. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, even friends of neighbors. Miguel's mom grabbed my hand, pulled me to a table piled with food and said, "Cayenne, eat." "You are too thin." She didn't ask who I was. Being a guest meant I was family. People I'd never met told me stories, handed me drinks, pulled me into dances. Filipino families are incredibly close and supportive. This wasn't just a party, it was a living, breathing team. A win for one person was a win for everyone. In that loud, crowded yard, I felt more at home than I ever had in my quiet apartment. That was the first real crack in my fortress of independence. The next lesson came during rainy season. I was driving back from a trip when a sudden downpour flooded the road. My rental car stalled, water rising around the tires. My Western brain went into crisis mode. Call the rental company, check the insurance, get a tow truck. Then I saw a man walk out of a hut with a giant banana leaf for an umbrella. Behind him came 2 more men, a woman, and a couple of teenagers. In minutes, 8 strangers stood around my car. They spoke quickly in Tagalog, pointed to my tires, then to higher ground. Before I could react, they had a plan. On the count of 3, they pushed my car together like a human tow truck. I was stunned. This was Bayanihan, the Filipino spirit of communal unity, where people come together to help without even being asked. They weren't just helping me move my car, they were showing me an entirely different way to live. After 10 long, wet minutes, they pushed my car to safety. I was standing there, drenched, stunned, and so grateful. My instinct kicked in. I reached for my wallet. That's just what you do where I'm from. Someone helps, you pay them for their time. The man who seemed to be the leader just smiled, shook his head, and gently pushed my hand away. Then, as if on cue, his wife stepped forward and handed me a steaming cup of coffee. Not only did they refuse my money, they gave me comfort. This was my first real taste of utang na loob, a debt of gratitude. But it's not like the transactional I owe you one I grew up with. It's something deeper, something that can't be measured or checked off a list. It's a lifelong bond, an invisible thread that connects people after a kindness has been given. And it's not about repayment, it's about relationship. Where I came from, debt was a dirty word, something to pay off as quickly as possible. Here, it was a form of wealth, emotional wealth, that tied communities together. That lesson sat in the back of my mind until the final piece of the puzzle clicked at work. I'd just created what I thought was a flawless project plan, tight, efficient, beautifully organized. I presented it to the team, proud of my precision. When I finished, one of the senior members, Anna, raised her hand. "Sir," she said politely, "it is a very good plan, very clear. But maybe we could talk to the community team before finalizing the technical parts." I'll be honest, my first reaction was frustration. That was out of sequence. It wasn't efficient. My instinct was to shut it down. But then I noticed the rest of the team, quiet nods, small smiles. Something was happening here that I wasn't seeing. So instead of steamrolling, I asked her, "Anna, why do you think that's better?" She explained that by talking to the community team first, we'd make them feel involved and respected. That it wasn't about the technical process, it was about the human process. This was my crash course in pakikisama, the value of smooth, respectful relationships. In my old world, speed and efficiency ruled. But here, group harmony was often more important than moving fast. Forcing my perfect plan through might have looked aggressive, even disrespectful, triggering higher, a sense of social shame that could have damaged trust beyond repair. I took her advice. Yes, it slowed the timeline, but the project moved forward like water, smooth, cooperative, and united. Everyone felt ownership, and that made the work stronger than anything I could have done alone. All these moments, being welcomed at a stranger's party, rescued by 8 soaked strangers, learning from Anna, stacked up in my mind until I could no longer ignore the truth. The ladder I'd been climbing all my life was leaning against the wrong wall. I had spent decades chasing a version of success built entirely on me, my wins, my goals, my independence. But here, in the Philippines, I learned the power of we. Success wasn't standing alone at the top. It was being woven into a strong web of people you could trust and who trusted you. Even phrases I thought I understood took on new meaning, like bahala na. I used to think it was a lazy whatever happens, happens. But it's not resignation, it's trust. Trust in a higher power, yes, but also in the people around you. It's a calm acceptance that you don't have to control every outcome because you are not alone. And that, letting go of the crushing belief that everything depends only on you, is the kind of freedom I never knew I was missing. My world flipped upside down. Social harmony wasn't a flaw, it was a feature. Gratitude wasn't a debt, it was a bond. Family wasn't just who you're related to, it was something you actively created, nurtured, and showed up for. Now, my life looks completely different. The spreadsheet is gone. I still have ambitions, but they're no longer the only thing that matters. I measure my days in the quality of my connections, not the number of boxes I check. I join merienda breaks without guilt because they're not interruptions, they're the heart of the day. I go to parties, I offer help without expecting anything back, and I know now that leaning on others is not weakness. It's one of the greatest strengths you can have. I came to the Philippines to get ahead in my career. Instead, I left that whole way of thinking behind. The warmth, generosity, and deep sense of community I found here didn't just change my habits, they rewired my soul. They taught me that a world built on we is infinitely richer, stronger, and more joyful than any world built on me. And now I want to hear from you. What cultural experience completely changed the way you see life? Share your story.